uh, is that your truths or your position is coming from expertise, not just the typical opinion that most people have in this space. Your position is actually coming from, it's backed by studies. You have your own uh, realm of material that you can gather a lot of these points and substantiate from, rather than just what everybody else typically do, just jump on Google. Now you
Mhm.
actually out here in the trenches dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people in the space that have these issues.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is. I knew I've lived. I mean, I'm on the internet like everybody else, so I've seen what happens whenever someone speaks out for good or bad reasons. I know that there's going to be two camps: those that huddle behind you and say we like what this message is, and then those who viscerally want to react poorly to it. In this scenario, I have a few agendas in mind, and things that I haven't said to my audience yet on my platform. But when I do, I'll let people know a lot more of what I'm trying to do and why. But the main focus is getting men and women, in each of us, to better understand each other, and to learn things that potentially we didn't really realize.
I appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it because I don't like to hold up. You know what I'm saying? I got some questions for you, and
Mm,
I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing them. We're gonna jump into masculinity and double standards. So my question to you is, and we're talking about toxic masculinity. Why
mm.
is it why is it socially acceptable for women to shame toxic masculinity, but not for men to challenge toxic femininity?
Hmm. So for starters, I actually will say one of my main reasons for doing this is to take back control of our lexicon and our language and our words and our speech. I think that there's been a group that's been pretty nefarious and very effective of being able to control what we're allowed to say publicly in workspaces and just even amongst our friends and family. The starting point, this concept of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, it does not exist, and I'm rocking against that concept because it's an oxymoron. In order for something to be masculine and in order for something to be feminine, these are considered positive attributes. In order to protect, in order to provide, in order to nurture, and in order to care, those are the signs, and reflections of somebody that's being masculine and or being feminine. These are positive things. So individuals that will take something that is positive and call it a toxic version of it, there's no such thing. If anything, that's like saying a stupid genius. Like either they're stupid or they're a genius. Toxic is just what human beings can be, men or women. But when they're being toxic, they're not being masculine. When they're being toxic, they're not being feminine. So just even that concept alone is like I'm not buying that narrative no more. I'm not buying that lexicon. I'm not using those words. Toxic masculinity and toxic femininity do not exist. They do not go hand in hand. Now, if you're asking why is it socially acceptable for people to point out men's bad behaviors versus why it is that it seems like we can't challenge women's bad behaviors, well, the starting point is because the extreme third and fourth wing feminists pretty much have been running the zeitgeist of society for quite a while in almost every major area of influence.
What is
School.
that zeitgeist? What does that mean?
Um, Actually, I'll use a better word. They are running they pretty much built the mental matrix of what we're allowed to do in society, what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to do, how we're allowed to feel, and even what we're allowed to believe in. So the third and fourth wing feminists have become so powerful and so effective. Whenever people point out things that women are doing that's wrong, they already have their go-to words to kind of shut you down, shame you. And if that's not enough, they'll go through the long list of things. You'll start recognizing the pattern. They'll start with calling you a misogynist. They'll start coming for your sexuality. Then they'll start coming for your relationship, if you have one. Then they'll start trying to go in your past and see who you've been with and to see if they could potentially expose you. Then if that's not enough to shut you down, then they want to find out what your credentials are. Then they're going to try to destabilize you in terms of economically. And the hope and goal is until you believe what we believe and say what we say, we will do all we can to break you until you fall back in line of submission. Their view is very simple. They've shifted from believing that the patriarchy was something that centered primarily around men, it was male centered. And they moved men out of the center. And instead of saying, you know what, maybe there's space in the center for both of us, they said, no, 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 no. Now it's our turn. We want things to be centered around female viewpoints, female orientation, female styles of communication, and female understandings of how to view these things. When you live in a functional cultural matriarchy like that, whenever you point out anything that women are doing wrong, now the impulse is not they could actually be doing something wrong. The impulse is he hates women. So I'm trying to get the audience to start to catch what's been going on and what's been dominating our fields for the last 2 generations. It was creeping in the college levels, and it's seeped all the way down to the elementary levels. It's in the HR departments. It's everywhere. We're so deep in it that it's to the point of almost like trying to see air. It is everywhere. So my goal is actually not to hate women or to prop men and say men need to be back in the center role. My job is actually to get us to a place where we can appropriately identify good and bad behaviors within both sexes and not allow those that only want to focus on things being negative that exists within the male population. I'm one of those people that's like, no, we got to get somewhere back in the middle. Because if we swing from everything's about men to now everything's about women, the goal of correcting this stuff is not to swing back to everything's about men again. My belief is that issue is probably how we ended up with this issue. So my lens is there is toxic men, there is toxic women. And if and when you point it out, people try to trick you into saying, well, you can't say that because do you hate women? Or are you misogynist? Or so women aren't allowed to this or no. Either what you're doing is right or wrong. And your gender is secondary to what the primary issue is. And leave it at that. And if they won't reconcile that, if they won't accept that, you run as far as you can away from people like that. And there are men and women that espouse that form of feminism where women are now central, where women are now held to a level where they're beyond reproach and can't be corrected. I'm basically shaking the paradigm and kind of messing with the algorithm a little bit in hopes to kind of get us to a much more balanced view.
That's excellent and that's what I kind of thought. That it's crazy that you say that the reason why they're pushing it all the way to, making everything centered around feelings and catering to the women is because the problem used to be, okay, everything should be circled and centered around the men. And then instead of just shifting it to the middle where it's fair and even, no, we're going to bring that thing all the way over to our side. Yeah. And then we're going to push for society to look the other way while we're doing it. And if any man try to come in, we're going to tear him down.
Yeah.
And so that's deep.
That's it. So and what you just said is the key part where if you want to know whether the woman in front of you, where she is on that spectrum between centralizing men, centralizing women, or somewhere in the middle, point out something that is a primary benefit to women and is at the expense of men and see what her response is to it. And that'll let you know where, once you know this and you start testing it out, you'll realize how much energy to expend in interactions and exchanges with them. So when I said what I said in that interview with the ladies on My Truth, Sharing My Truth podcast, and I was listing the laundry list of things that primarily impacts men and is usually a benefit to women. The women that said we don't care, that's y'all issue. There's nothing talking about paternity fraud. What's the purpose of changing that? Now you know where she is. Now you're learning earlier and sooner where they stand. And now all you got to do is respond accordingly. You know what? You got it. Because now you know she's not at a place of seeing the value of your humanity as a man. She's still at the spot where, because of oppression, because of Marxism, because of what I was taught, because of what I was indoctrinated or propagandized to believe, You as a man can't point out things that's wrong with me or women.
You know what? I used to think that the only women who had this position were women who were projecting and had traumatic experiences, and it
Hmm.
impacted their makeup and how they see things. But then I started to learn that it's not just those women; it's actually women that are coming out learning this
Hmm.
stuff, and embracing it, and they never even try to see men for who they really are. But then
Hmm.
they just learn to have a position because of perhaps maybe who they inspired by.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and as an example, what you're saying, I think a lot of us grew up and became adults believing that those women were the blue haired women with, always protesting
Yeah.
something. And what we realized and turned out was like, no, there's aspects of this belief system that's kind of ingrained in a lot of us. Men, boys, and girls are being taught to view things this way. And think of an example. When you're a really, really, really young boy, and the first time you have a negative physical altercation with a girl where she puts her hands on you, she pushes you, she hits you, and you go to retaliate, what's the first thing they teach you? Don't put your hands on the girl.
Don't put your hands on a woman.
All right. The issue with it, that's right, don't do it. But the issue with it is that both sides have been taught one side's allowed to be a little bit more of an aggressor in this area, and the other side has to be willing to just accept and take it. Now, when this boy and girl grows up, extrapolate that over society.
Oh,
You now have a group that functionally feels like you can't touch me. You can't say this to me. You can't have standards for me. Standards for what I got to bring to the table? No, that's sexist. That's misogynistic. It's something as subtle as that. As it grows and expands into the various domains of our life, you can start to see it all over the place. And once you get rid of the toxic masculinity, toxic femininity stuff, just look at it through the spectrum of there's good people and bad people. And there is a segment of the population that includes a small percentage of men and a huge percentage of women that functionally believe only one side is evil.
that's crazy because now, and it helps me understand it a little bit more layered. Because if you're teaching these things as young kids, you're teaching young kids these things. We didn't compensate for the fact that it will overlap in other areas. Like if you're teaching a man to just take it on the chin, now indirectly, you might be teaching that young man when he becomes an adult, that, hey, not have any boundaries, take disrespect, accept
Hmm.
manipulation. All of these other things that can derive from that very teaching, we
Hmm.
did not compensate for it. And
Think
there's really no way to undo that. They
yeah.
end up in your office
Hmm.
and you're trying to plead with them on how to do that. And you know what? I used to think that this was a Western thing, like the Western culture, because the passport bros came out. And now
Hmm.
those guys are flying over to whatever location X is, and they're getting different results. But then I hear a different side to it that the waves of feminism wasn't just strictly on the West. It impacted other countries.
It's
So
definitely starting to.
warning, you go over there thinking everything is sweet,
Hmm.
you're still going to be dealing with some of the similar issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were taught that the things we would not tolerate from another man are things that we have to tolerate from the opposite sex. So that it takes a while. It usually takes heartbreak, it takes some disappointment, it takes some shame, or it takes some public embarrassment for men to kind of wake up and be like, whoa, the Disney fairy tale of how they presented all these princesses is just not the reality. They're human beings that have good sides and bad sides, strengths and weaknesses, flaws like the rest of us. But there's an environment that says you're not allowed to speak on it. And if you do, we have a whole system in place of how to shut you down and stop you because the point of chastisement is meant for y'all, not us.
So, do you believe therapy has been feminized? And if so, has that made men less likely to seek help or even trust therapists?
People can use the word feminized. I will say it definitely has feminist leanings in term and it's female dominated by default. But it includes men and women who are pushing a particular way of communication, a particular way of, uh, I'll say it this way. For a lot of men, their ability to genuinely feel better about the problems in their life is when the problem is identified. They're given steps and instructions on how to resolve it, and the issue and problem is resolved. That is how men feel better. For women, sometimes they want the issue resolved, but a lot of times their healing, their validation, and their feeling of catharsis is just by the nature of being heard, being seen. And sometimes they'll feel better even when the issue that they were referencing or talking about doesn't even go away or change. It's just the idea that somebody finally hears me. I'm allowed to vent. The issue with that is if you bring those two parties with those two problem solving techniques into play, if one side is trying to keep bringing up the same thing over and over, I know we've been talking about this for the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months. And the other side is like, all right, you gonna forgive me or not? We gonna fix this or not? You're in a situation where the therapist will struggle if they don't recognize what I'm talking about. They will pick a side of who they're going to prioritize, and one side will feel validated and the other side will not. So unfortunately for a lot of men, it's very difficult for them to come across a therapist, let alone a male therapist, who already knows what I'm talking about and is able to acknowledge what both parties tend to need in real time. So men's perspective is, if what I'm going through in the house is another version of that, just being tag team, I'm good. And that's, for a lot of men, that's unfortunately their experience. So yeah.
It's funny you say that because I hear a lot of guys saying men don't need to go to therapists. They just need to go to other brothers who have the outcomes that they're trying to achieve to figure out if those guys can teach them how to get around the challenges and obstacles. But I think those guys in deeply, they believe that, yeah, if I go to therapy, she's just going to be an expert version of my wife to tell me that, yeah, go listen to your wife. Happy wife, happy life. And it's funny you say that. And the thing about the women, because I've run into this with, in relationships with women, and I'm married, I noticed that I had to learn specifically what you just stated about. It's not always conducive to go and attack the problem and just rectify it and solve the problem. You're dealing with a woman who wants to get you to try to embrace and understand the sensitivity of the situation, her feelings. And regardless if you can fix the problem, I want to know, do you know how I feel? Yeah. And I started to learn that in a lot of occasions, that's all that really matters. The problem can be, the house can burn down. But do you know how the smoke, do you know how it feels to be able to just let it stop?
Yeah, man. So it's wildly frustrating, but what I will say, and I'm speaking to men when I say this, I'm learning it too. I'm living it in real time. And I'm learning that our refusal to acknowledge that need is why there's such a massive disconnect and why they end up leaving. So if we don't get that piece, and again, this is the same with women, but like, if we don't acknowledge that they are not us, they don't see it like us, they're not going to completely see it like us, they're not even going to feel about it the same way we do. Both sides have to figure out a way of, you know what, this is a moment when I am going to set aside my need for yours and hope that once your need is fulfilled, you can do the same for me. That's the challenge, is figuring out what does my wife or girlfriend need in this moment, and who's going to take the initiative to initiate catering to the need of the other party with the assumption that eventually it will be returned.
And I think based off this exchange we had about the feelings between the men and women, I think it's safe to argue that this could be a point that one could use to argue the fact that men and women are biologically wired differently, just based off of what you just transpired between this conversation. Because It almost feels like this is biological, that a woman uh, prioritizing her feeling over the solution being, or the issue being solved.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I tend to see that more in women. I don't really see that typically in men. Men are more logical. Hey, let's just get the issue done. You know, chuck, cut our losses and keep moving. But the women want to have a conversation about how it impacted her emotionally. So, am I wrong for saying that that's biological?
We're wrong for reducing it to just that. I think
Mm,
that it depends the context, it depends the situation, because there's plenty of instances where women are probably actually more analytical and logical than men are at times. Detail oriented is a female trait more often than not. Big picture concepts, oftentimes that's men. Manifest on the male side. The taking note of subtle shifts in emotional spaces, being able to read energy is how they kind of describe it. If you have a discerning woman, she can pick up on things that you don't see when she's in the room with you. And she can tell you when y'all get in the car, yo, did you notice this? And she's telling you all these details. And you're like, how did you pick that up? Right? They have so many dope strengths. But if we keep reducing it down to they're just emotional
mm,
mammals, and we're mammals that lack emotion, that's not the case. It depends on the topic. It depends on the subject, and then as you learn this, you start to be like, oh, okay, okay, and now you start seeing each other's differences as actually strengths versus as simple as. And I'll give you an example. We moved into this house last year, and my whole focus was get the house, do the maintenance. I wasn't super interested in the decor. We're now a year into the home, and our entire first floor is fully furnished. No thanks to me. That is relationships. My job was to make sure we got to the finish line of meeting our closing deadline, get this house built, and got in. Now it's my job to maintain and make sure we're there, that we can stay there, and do what I can to improve our economic situation on an annual basis. She works too, but her primary view of what she wanted to do was making the house a home. And if we lean just 100% into Jeff, a bunch of rooms would still be empty even now, a year later.
empty.
Right? Empty. No, not even blinds up. Right?
Same here, bro.
Exactly. Exactly. So there is benefits when we start to learn more about each other and see each other as more assets than liabilities.
Right. So there's power in those emotional traits, or those
Absolutely.
sensitivities. This can be used to her advantage.
Hmm.
But it's our responsibility as men and women to make sure it's actually used in a positive way when we come into relationships.
Yeah, and the way we
Oh,
get around doing that is rewarding the positive sides of it. When
and not, yeah.
so for instance, when a woman is extremely emotionally volatile, dangerous, keying cars, burning property, pulling up to the, do you reward that behavior by continuing to deal with her, continuing to mess around with her, give her
No.
children, give her a ring? Well, we do that. We do that,
Yeah,
right? So hold
yeah,
on,
society is doing that.
So that logic, that reason, that rationality that we so proud of ourselves, how I get jammed up in these situations? How have I lost and destroyed whole relationships because of where was my reason and logic then? So the
Yeah.
reality is like we have strengths, we got weaknesses, and it's on the flip side too, where it's like she can be so loving, but if things go south, it's scorched earth with women. The same woman that could say you're my life partner could try to destroy you economically to where you're living out of a car. So we got to recognize that we have two sides to us, and my goal is to get us to recognize the things that are dangerous, lean in on and lean close to those that appear to be healthy, and find somebody that you got similar compatibility with, and let's not try to socialize our difference out of us. Let's integrate those differences together.
And it's crazy. It's phenomenal that you said that. Like a woman could, and you can love her to death. The first thing you saw, you want to bring her to the altar, make her your wife, give her the world. But that same woman can have you living out of your car, eating breadcrumbs. And
Yeah.
I think with that logic, it's safe to say that the more you love a person, the more on the other extreme, the more you could hate them if things fail.
Yeah.
So you run a risk of severe hatred for a person that you immensely fell in love with. That's crazy. That's a crazy concept.
Yeah.
So why are men always told to open up emotionally, be more expressive of how you feel, but the moment they do, it's often used against them later?
You had heard me reference the blank slate theory, right? Last time we met,
Yes.
and at the
Wrote it
panel.
down.
Yeah, and the more you look into it, the more fascinating it is, and you can start to see why it's problematic. And it applies to this question. If you are convinced that both sexes are pretty much close to like 100% damn near the same, minus to some external physiological, biological changes like our reproductive organs, outside of that, if you believe we're psychologically the same, if you believe that one sex is getting it right, doing it right, it is of higher standing morally, then your belief system is that the opposite sex needs to now live up to the standard. Why is it that women can say, you need to open up more because that's what they like to do? But the idea of men saying, you need to be more logical. Whoa. You need to focus more on your reason, right? Lean less on your emotions. They wouldn't receive that. What I'm suggesting is this is a attempt to externalize something that they believe within themselves works and helps them to connect, helps them to feel better. And now they're telling their male counterparts to do it. I don't even mind them saying that men should do it. The issue is the assumption that they're the safest person to do it with. Maybe he does need to open up. Maybe he does need to share what's going on. But are we of the assumption that every single girlfriend, every single sister, every single mother, and every single wife is emotionally, mentally, and clinically mature enough to be able to know how to respond to this man's pain, to respond to this man's trauma, to the pressure? That's really the greater issue. You're trying to make men behave like women and assuming that every woman that he does it with is going to handle it well. Why is it that so many men that no longer open up? At one point they did. At one point in the past they did. And what happened that resulted in them not wanting to do it with you now? And were you that woman in the past they did it with? What's brought up oftentimes 2 months, 6 months later during an argument that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now? Something I opened up about. Something I was vulnerable about. So yes, men are being pushed to do something with people who may not even have the capabilities of being able to know how to handle and respond to it. My argument is we have to raise the bar of expectations for the caliber. We cannot continue to do life with people who won't allow us to be able to do that. We keep getting with women that we know we can't open up with. We know going to fall apart as soon as we tell them something they don't want to hear. And we know it's going to spin it back on us when we say something that's going on with me. By the end of the conversation, I'm apologizing and she crying. When I was my issue. So all I'm suggesting is there's a place for men to open up. I suggest that they start to first try to attempt to do that with people who have a track record of being able to handle other people's pain. That could be a therapist. That could be a life coach. That could be a mentor. But if you start with one of those 3 domains, more often than not, you'll start moving in the right direction of getting it out, identifying what's going on, and being pointed in the right direction about what to do about it. Putting that onto your partner. There are men that said when they were crying, when they failed, when they lost their income, they saw a shift in the woman they were with. They saw a shift. She didn't have to say it. She didn't have to make it very, but they saw the shift. Disrespect is a little bit more frequent than before. Doubting his leadership now. undermining his authority. All these things are starting to kind of creep in there because he opened up or something happened that made him more vulnerable than usual. And then all of a sudden, you're starting to see how this shift. Why would somebody who has seen this habit, woman after woman after woman, think, you're right, I'm going to open up about something that hurts me, that shows that a area of weakness for me. You're right, I should do that. We are socialized not to do it. Why? Because the men that from the very beginning, when first interacting with women, talk about their pain, talk about things they've been through, are the men that's placed in the category of nice guy, good guy, but not the guy that I want to lead me and protect me for the rest of my lives. It happens all the time.
So is there social cues or physical cues that a man can look for in his partner, in his wife, where it'll compel him to feel comfortable, like, okay, I know I can open up to her and she's not going to use it? Or is this something that we just got to take a risk on? Whenever she does use some of the things against us, then we know that we got to shut that option off.
It'll always be more helpful if you try to pay attention to this before you get in a relationship with a woman. It's much harder to figure out how to deal with it when you're in it, and there are certain strategies, but see how it is that she talks about her exes.
Mm.
See how it is that I'm telling you, and hear my logic, man. This man is no longer doing life with her. She owes him nothing. He owes her nothing. They have gone their separate ways, and now you have replaced him, or you are in the process of replacing him. She should be so mentally, emotionally removed from him that she's able to prioritize and focus and share her positive emotions with you. And if you see a shift in her when she's talking about a man from before, where she's going scorched earth on this guy, and they haven't been together in 3 years, and that's 2, 3, 6, however long it was. If he's still able to get that much of an emotional rise out of her, even at this point when she's trying to date and deal with you, who would have convinced you? Well, she'll be different with me if things go poorly. I'm being stupid. Like,
Her physical appearance.
Yeah, like, bro, a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. A lot of it is more just paying attention and seeing red flags as not pink ones. That's a red flag. What do you think she's going to be likely to do when she's upset? When you're now in the spot of somebody that's let her down? When things don't work out with you two, and now you all of a sudden you a narcissist. You on the list of narcissists from the past. So it's something as subtle as that. How does she talk about men in general? How does she talk about her exes? And when stuff hits the news that pertains involving a man or a woman, and there's little to no evidence in either direction for who to believe, who does she tend to side with? Is she neutral? Is she say, well, that's crazy, we got to wait to find out more information? Or is she already saying he's guilty until proven innocent? These are 3 areas that's clear. I don't know. What you tell me what you think? Do you think I'm on to something?
I think you got it, man. I think a lot of the stuff you've been saying lately is the reason why I feel personally. The reason why I feel like, and I might be giving you flowers too early. You might mess up tomorrow.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. But the reason why I feel like you're more captivating and polarizing. One could agree that a lot of the stuff you're saying, some people, your predecessors, people came before you, more like the Kevin Samuels. Mm-hmm. Even maybe myself has said some of the things. But like I said before, your delivery, and I think you showcased that whenever you're talking to a group of women in Canada, and you were talking to a group of women on the Lapeef Network last Thursday, is the delivery. And I would admit personally, maybe the reason why I'm not able to pull in the women is because of my delivery is more no nonsense, no filter. You know what I'm saying? I'm more punchy with it, and I don't really cater to their feelings. Do you think I would be doing a disservice to my audience as an influencer, as an expert, if I was to try to be more cognizant of the other side so that my message can come across and be received? Or do you think I should just stand 10 toes down on what I've been doing and just say, the hell with, if they don't receive it, they don't, I'm just keep
Mhm.
on pushing.
I think we should stand 10 toes down with the truth. How you package it depends on who's in front of you. And my question is like, when you have had children, did you talk to your adolescent child or your toddler the way that you talk to your teenager? No. You're focusing on the audience that you're trying to target or talk to and engage with in that moment. And you're matching your tone or your tonality, your pitch, and your approach to the audience that's in front of you. If you were in the military, how'd they talk to you?
Oh man, I'd probably get shut down off YouTube if I start talking like
Right?
that. Lord have mercy.
But now reimagine them acting that way in a corporate setting. Mm-mm. It made sense in this setting, not in that.
Right.
What's happening is when we learn things, when we get this truth. I've struggled with that with my wife at times, where I'm trying to hit this point home, and she's like, I still ain't receiving it, and I'm like, how you gonna not receive it? This is A and B, black and white, and she's like, nope, 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 nope. And then and then what's crazy is when we're calmer, when something pops up on TV that we're watching, and she's like, you literally said that. So I'm learning, like we all are, and again, these are things I have to try to learn both professionally and personally. That if the truth is going to be the truth, then my job is to package it in the best way possible to plant the seed for you to potentially water and allow it to grow. Sometimes we may do that together in real time right in front of me, and sometimes that may hit you 6 months later. But if I did what I was supposed to do, you don't associate me with the message. But what if you're getting in the way of the truth being received? What if I'm the barrier for truth to potentially hit some people strictly because I'm yelling, strictly because I'm over talking? You rejecting it with me being calm, measured, semi-reserved, and careful with what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. You rejecting it at this point potentially is a lot less to do with me.
Exactly.
You're not rejecting me, you're rejecting the truth. But if I'm adding all this other stuff to the truth, yeah, they could be rejecting the truth, but they're also rejecting you. So I've, like everybody else, watched these podcasts at times and learned and observed, and I saw how they treated some of these people, men and women. Why was it that every woman that says something true about women that wasn't positive, she's a pick me? She's evil. She needs to decentralize men or decenter men. Why is it that every man that says something about men that we need to improve on, he's a simp? He's pandering to women. I'm learning about the strategies, I'm learning about the techniques, and I'm learning about all the got you approaches into conversationally of how people try to get us all in line to think and function a certain way. So when we get better at, and you're already there, where you can identify and see a lot of the things I'm talking about, but it's how we respond to it. It's how we engage with it. My entrance to this whole podcast public space is I've seen what you've done to so many men and women. What if I break the algorithm and do it just everything you think you're going to do? I've thought about it already. You're going to criticize me about how I'm dressed? I'm dressed. You're going to criticize me about my tone? I haven't raised my tone. You're going to criticize me about calling people names? I've never called anybody names. You're going to say he doesn't know this? I read it. I got books in front of me. Got books in front. So I've thought about these things carefully enough to where I'm basically playing chess with the public. And I'm waiting to see how long before y'all be like, you know what, checkmate, Jeff, we finally got you. But right now, I've learned that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, Jeff would not have handled this well. People calling me gay, people saying my wife don't exist or she definitely ain't black, that I'm a fake therapist, that I'm doing voodoo science and all sorts of stuff. I take in being in this reading and intellectual stuff, I really, really am into, and it's probably a part of how I identify. So for people to really say he's a fake, I'm like, so my 3,000 clinical hours, my 10,000 plus, 10 plus years of working in this, prisons, treatment plans, diagnoses, hiring psychologists, psychiatrists, you gonna say I don't know? And I want to go in so bad. Now I'm like, that's not gonna be as effective.
Don't
It's
let
a
them
great crash. It's a great crash out moment. It'd be entertaining, but far more people will probably be open and receptive if I slow down with moving off my emotion and start thinking more measured long term.
So you are the living proof. And I think Kevin Samuels was as well, because I could argue that his tone was very, subtle. He wasn't,
Yeah.
a lot of his detractors, a lot of people came from the clips, and they
Hmm.
used that to paint the narrative that his delivery was off whenever it never was. So you guys are the living proof as a man who can have the delivery that appeals to the woman's ears for her to be receptive,
Mm.
and still they would want to tear you down and destroy everything that it is that you stand for,
Mm.
which corroborates our position that it's not necessarily the delivery. It's you trying to heal society. You trying to become as a person to bring everybody together and just cease the dysfunction. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to talk a little bit about relationships and power dynamics. In your clinical experience, who tends to initiate more emotional abuse in relationships, men or women?
This is a tough question because I think it depends on the topic and issue that you're talking about. When it comes and where is emotional abuse in connection to physical abuse? So, and the reason why I'm asking that is because, or at least stating that, is because, well, one, depending on the stat, a lot of physical abuse is very even now between men and women. And there's some studies that showing that women are actually a little bit higher to be the initiators of it. So my issue is, well, how do we truly measure an emotional form of abuse when you're dealing with one sex that more often than not is going to be physically weaker than the other? So take this to its furthest extreme. Women who mandate that a man be sexually monogamous to them, and she intentionally chooses to weaponize his access to sex because she's not happy for weeks, months, years. Is that just one example of emotional abuse, or is that a everyday ongoing form of emotional abuse? And I'm like, well, who's more likely to do that? Are men more likely than women to reduce or cut off access to sex on a whim
No.
just because? All right. Well, how prevalent is that in marital relationships? So then who then is more emotionally abusive? And then we're like, oh, well, let's measure it another way. Who's more likely to dictate what the other party in 2025 is allowed to post on social media in terms of what they're allowed to show in terms of their bodies?
Men.
What? Okay. Potential. It could be seen as controlling. It could even be interpreted and seen as a form of emotional abuse
Or protection.
or protection. But then when you flip it, who's more likely to go off about their partner liking the pictures of the opposite sex,
Oh,
but be accepting of
the like she get.
the like she get?
Oh,
All right. So case after case after case, you almost have to view these as individual case studies where you realize both men and women at times can display these type of traits. So in my head, there is no, this gender tends to be more emotionally abused. Like, no, I think it depends on the topic.
so we would be disingenuous if we tried to put a blanket over it when there's so
Yeah.
many layers and so many contexts that you got to take.
Yeah.
No.
There's I've seen and observed the stories of the men that dominated their women to the degree where they cut her off from her family, right? And I've seen and heard of the examples and stories where women cut their men off from their male friends. Where if he not working, he with her. He don't get to go out with the guys. He don't get to do guys trips. She can. He can. I've seen that.
Sound like
So-
some insecurity, right?
Sure. But the point I'm making is that both sexes, depending on the person you with, can do it.
Yeah. They both can do it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So, are modern women truly, and you know what we mean by modern women? I don't need to break that down for you.
Mhm.
Are modern women truly interested in therapy to improve the relationship, or are they just seeking validation and control?
It's a combo. There's some that start off with primarily seeking more validation and greater control over the direction of what's happening in the relationship and going forward. And sometimes they'll change over the course of the therapy, where you expose what she's doing and the way in which you can communicate it to make it be known to her what she's doing. And you'll see the shift where they start in, he needs therapy, he needs treatment. Everything is about him. And then by the end, she's like, wow, I got some things to work on too.
Mhm.
And then there's other women where that they started there and they're gonna stay there.
They're going to stay there.
They're gonna stay there. So like you just said, there is no blanket. Every woman that's come, there's some incredible therapists, female therapists. I had one when I was in college, and I had my first professional therapist was a woman who helped build up my mental when I was starting to get to a low point. She really helped me. And again, it really wasn't as much about the validation as much as like she was giving me practical steps of things I just needed to do because I didn't really want to talk as much. And I just did them and I felt better. And, so yeah, there's definitely women who are using therapy as a form of weaponization against other parties. And they're also using it as as an emotional and cognitive eraser to erase the parts of their life and past where they're actually the ones who need to be taking responsibility. Let me erase that part that I did. Let me just give you the version where they at fault. They do that. And then each week they come in, they get to erase that part that they feeling a little guilty about. Remember, doc, remember therapist, remember so-and-so when they did this to me and so-and-so did that. And every week it's a new version of what somebody else did and that they have no autonomy, that they have no volition. They have no ability to take control over where they are presently and where they want to go. So there are definitely people that do that. You'll typically know it with the people who will stay in therapy for years and never shift. Second part, never shift what the focus and priority is on. It's usually centered around the same one or two issues. If you're growing, you may have 10 legitimate issues that you need to work out and you're going one by one down the list. But if you're going a long period of time talking about the same thing, and 80-90% of it has to do with your own actions and how you got there and how you can get out, and you don't want to leave, but you also love the idea of people being able to hear you and validate you. Yeah, man. Some women are like that, and there's other women that's like, I want to be better. I want to be a better partner. I want to be a better woman. I want to be a better sister. I don't want to carry these emotions with me everywhere. I don't want to externalize this or project this onto everybody else. Like, help me. Both of those things can be true.
So I'm gonna take a detour, and we're gonna come right back to power dynamics or relationships.
Mhm.
This is something that I've been wanting to get from your side because I saw you go on Just Pearly. Well, now her name is Pearl. I don't know if you know her history, but she came into the space. We like to call it the manosphere, and she took over it like it was a storm.
Yep.
She took over it. Some people say it was a money grab, whatever. But what I found interesting about it is I felt like this was a void to fill for a sister. When I say sister, a black woman, to come into the black manosphere, the manosphere space, and be able to be as prevalent and as just with so much authority. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, because this
Mhm.
is the idea I have in my mind. I think the reason why a black woman couldn't do what Pearl did is because Pearl seems like the type to be able to wake up out of the bed, brush her teeth, put her hair in a bun, and just record tens, hundreds of videos. As
Mhm.
far as a black woman,
Mhm.
she had to set up appointment for makeup. She had to set up appointment to get her hair done. She had to make sure she looks good on camera, make sure her boobs are showing. And then she can start making one piece of content. And by the time she gets one out, Pearl, who's her competitor, getting hundreds of pieces of content out.
Mhm.
And that's not even it. The other side to it is perhaps maybe their sister code for black women is so strong.
Yeah.
And the black woman has so many friends and relatives that she would have to lose in order to do what Pearl did. And I
Yeah.
don't think black women today is ready to lose so many friends and
Yeah.
so many family members to do what Pearl did. What are your thoughts?
I more so lean towards the second option of what you're saying. That there is a level of loyalty, not just amongst the sisterhood in general, but particularly about the black community as it relates to black women. The sisterhood is so strong that they'll go silent even when they know the sister in front of them is wrong. And they won't get behind the one that's right. If it results in ostracization, and isolation, and loss of relation, just me doing this, who do you think has already unfollowed me or not talking to me that I don't even know yet?
The
Right?
sisters.
Probably, possibly. And I'm okay with it because I know that if I really genuinely believe where I'm at is moving in the right direction and for why I'm doing it, that's not typically their ability to maintain relationships is typically rooted in all the things that they can't say. So when the guy cheats, he's an a-hole. He's disgusting. He's the worst thing possible. But when your girlfriend did it, she was hurt. He did it first. She was just going through a lot. We see it with people in the news and celebrities where when a situation involves a woman lying, doing something, they'll be the loudest at the beginning with the guy being demonized. And if it turns out she was lying, it was a fake accusation, crickets. That means that if you won't speak on somebody that's famous that you don't know and calling that out because she's a woman who you don't know and have no history relationship with because of the fear of socially how people are going to respond to you, how many of y'all would be willing to do it with your own girlfriends in real time? What if a huge component of why a lot of them are not able to be the Pearl is because their greatest critic and their greatest attack will come from their own black women. I I've seen it. So they have terms to shame women from siding with the truth if it just so happens to be to the benefit of the man that's saying it. What culture creates a term as a negative pejorative from saying something true? So if I say something negative about a politician that's on your side of the political aisle, I hate women or I hate being black. If a woman says something about women's behavior, she will pick me. She not down with the cause. She not with the sisters. She I forget what the term is that they use where it's like women who internalized misogyny. They just inventing terms to come up with all the options to kind of keep you from being able to be own it and say, yo, when it's a dude, you have no problem being honest. But when it's your homegirl or a woman, even one you don't know, crickets. Y'all may say this amongst yourselves in text or FaceTime, but y'all be loud with the articles that you're sharing and posting and doing whole discussion pieces on, when it's people and women that don't align with the narrative of the negative things that we're not allowed to talk about. So I actually think it's the second part. The level of community, the bondedness. We're bonding and holding ourselves to oaths in terms of women, and locking in on, hold the line. We're holding the line on all the wrong things. What if we got behind the women that points out things we need to work on? Is it really that hard for y'all to acknowledge that paternity fraud is evil, is bad, wrong? Is it that hard to say, next politician we vote for in any side of the political aisle that runs on this platform, we're going to do this as an expense to us for the sake of equality? Is it that hard? It is. That's why there's no pearls, black pearls. We on that level, we do have black women that are doing it. I was just on Crimson Cure last night. Shout out to her. And she's one of the pioneers that does it. But the length of what they're willing to do to the women that do is crazy.
Yeah, I would be wrong if I didn't acknowledge the Crimson Cures and the Danikas and the Lady Dies and all those women.
Lady Di,
I would be wrong if I didn't give them their flowers. I give them the flowers, but I am aware that the length or the extreme. And sorry, that's my son in the background. I do have to acknowledge that I think the level, the degree that Pearl took it to where, and this is no shade to the sisters that are doing well in the space. The degree Pearl was willing to take it to, she was willing to bring all of her ops in one setting. She probably spent, and one could say she was a trust fund baby or whatever, and she had the money to do it. But she was willing to take all of her ops and bring them all together and stand against them and let them have the smoke and prove her points against them. But the women now, and I can understand it, they want to be protected. They want to keep themselves away from the debate, and they just want to push it out. I understand that. But I will say, I notice you coming into this space, you haven't endured yet with, I would say, most men who are speaking on the truth. On behalf of the truth, you're going to have to understand that the benefit women have in these spaces, the audience, the women audience, because of their emotional power, whenever they watch a piece of content, whenever they digest it benefits that creator to the point to where the engagement is very high, the views are very high, the comments are very high, versus a man. Men are not really emotionally connected to the piece of content. So oftentimes we'll be more logical. Oh yeah, Bruiser, Darwin, he'll be here tomorrow. Let me just watch the video. They don't really bother liking and sharing or anything like that. So the women have a unfair advantage in the content creation or the engagement race, because women actually fall in love. And that's why they're more susceptible to panders and all that other stuff, because they actually fall in love with the piece of material that's being pushed out, versus the man, they're not really, they like the content, they want it out there, but they're not just going to embrace it as much, which can result in more engagement and more growth. And you'll see more like the Kevin Samuels. A lot of his audience, a lot of the male audience was there, but he attracted a lot of female audience. And a lot of men, I could argue that a lot of men went there because they saw females engagement. And that was actually indirectly a dating session, so to speak, whenever you start to run your names to Instagrams and stuff like that. So it's a whole layer thing, but I don't want to harp on that. But what are your thoughts on that? Again, you haven't been in this space, but I'm just bracing you, brother.
It doesn't matter.
Don't
Doesn't
matter.
matter to me. Nah. So I already have a clock in my head of how long I want to do this, if I'm allowed to, and when I want to be out. I want to spam and attack the algorithm that conditions us to see the majority of our problems in life and society is strictly primarily the result of the opposite sex. I'm spamming and I'm coming for that area. The people who lean in that direction, the people who push that, the talking points, the code words that they're using to kind of keep pushing toxic masculinity, like I'm catching it. And now I'm trying to get us to zone in on it and be like, no. So I know for me, that's the goal. Because
Brother Podcast mode.
if I'm if I'm
Breaking up a little bit.
sorry, if I'm the one who gets bludgeoned in the process, or one of the ones that gets bludgeoned in the process of us being better than we are right now, 10 years from now, so be it. So be it. Because what's happened now is there's an insanely small group of people now because of social media, because of the past, because of the internet, because of all this social pressure to shut people down and control people and destroy their name and their legacy and their brand. That only matters to people who care about that. That's not me. I'm not motivated by that. So, as a result, I'm at a space where I'm comfortable with what comes, good and bad. And my hope is to just do enough to where people can genuinely believe that if they reflect on some of the things I'm offering and apply the things that they think make sense and is true, then I would have had a positive impact, and that's the goal. And sorry, y'all. Looks like Darwin is getting back on. Or is that with me too? Okay, thanks.
What in the heck?
Man,
Yeah, brother.
I was spitting some good stuff too. I don't know if you heard it.
Hopefully they had heard it.
Yeah, basically all I said was that I don't actually care nearly as much about the numbers, the hate, the love. I'm more interested in forcing perspectives of truth and objectivity into a space that doesn't welcome and allow it, and let the chips fall where they may. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Great. Understood. But you saw me cutting out, right?
Mhm.
I'm sorry about that, Chad. Appreciate y'all staying tuned in, even though I was cutting out. I don't know. They've been reporting us, trying to get us taken down or something, maybe. I
Mike
don't
said
know
the
what it
CIA watching.
is.
I said, man,
Yes.
they got me early.
All right. I don't know how much time you got, but let's block back to power dynamics, and you let me know if I need to tighten up.
Okay. All right.
So, what is your professional opinion on women saying, "I don't need a man," while expecting that same man or a man to pay all of the bills?
The first part, when it comes to I don't need a man, that's usually more so in relation to, that's usually speaking to primarily dating relationships, right? Romantic relationships, because all of us need men in order to exist in the modern world, right? Infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the tunnels, the electricity. There's so many men that need to do all these jobs in order for us to live and even do what we're doing right now. We all need men, period. When it comes to relationships, that's usually the consequence of disappointment in their past decision making and mate selection choices. That's why they say, they usually ain't saying I don't need a man at 18, but they may be saying that at 30 or 40. Number one. And then number two, that's a cope for a lot of them. Because if you didn't If you didn't feel that way, if you felt that way, you would have no expectations of what he needs to bring. If you don't need him, then you don't need his resources. If you don't need his resources, then it doesn't matter what he makes. So a lot of times when they say that, it's cold. If you have standards for the type of man you're willing to date and want, and you're expecting him to bring certain things with you, yeah, that's what that means. You actually not only need him, you see value in him. So typically that's just a statement reflecting of something that they haven't obtained as of yet.
Okay. So, what if, let me ask you this. If a woman has a high body count, I'm pretty sure you heard this being this dog all over the place. If a woman has a high body count, but
Mhm.
demands a high value man, is that a form of delusion or sexual entitlement?
It depends where she is in life when she's making that statement. A young woman who's still physically fit, still very attractive, and still comes off very feminine, is still gonna get attention from men. And she may, depending on her age, her body, and her ability to carry herself, still be able to get the quote unquote men that a lot of other women want. We have women in Hollywood who get passed around left and right, and they still end up with them. And you'll get the it guy that'll end up with one of those women. It's because she has the leverage of her youth, her physique, and her body is still at a place where she's not delusional. She's actually obtaining and getting it. She's still getting flown out. She's still getting taken out to nice places. She's still getting a lot of the things that she got at 21, 18, 25. She's still getting them. But then there's women where that they're not getting that anymore. It's decreasing. Now you're moving in the territory of being more delusional. So a lot of times they start off basing it on reality. And then over time, when reality is no longer matching that, but they're still expecting it, that's actually when they become more delusional. In terms of the getting up to the high body count, there's different reasons for why women are getting it that high. Sometimes they're building up the high body count literally because of the lack of impulse control. They just get handing it out like candy. Other times, the body count is going high and high because every year she got a different boyfriend and she keeps being a poor mate selector. And number three, if women can use children to try to control and get access to men, why don't you think a lot of women use sex to try to do the same thing? The difference is this. I know that men want sex and I give them sex, maybe even early and upfront, but there's no guarantee that the man is going to stay. So if they're using that as a mating strategy to lock a man in, and he's like, man, she gave it to me on the day one, first night. How many people is she doing it? Man, this was a good time, but I can't wipe her up. All right, she's gonna try it again and again and again and again. So the reality is like high body counts aren't all equal. All women don't act the same when they have high body counts. And where she's at in life and how men are responding or engaging with her dictates whether or not she's delusional, entitled, or her expectations are justified. It's about the reality of what she's actually getting.
So, are women more emotionally unstable after sleeping with men who don't commit?
Mm.
Or is that just some red pill myth or talk point?
The National, what's it called? The National Library of Medicine. I challenge everybody that's listening to this. Go to that website and type in risky business. Is there an association between casual sex and mental health among emerging adults? It's a study. And it goes into detail about the various different studies that talks about casual and one night stand sex and how it impacts both populations. Some studies say marginal shifts or changes. And then some studies, that particular study that I referenced, I believe it did 30 campuses, a pretty decent sample size. And it showed that men were twice as likely to report happiness than their female counterparts when having casual sex. And that women were therefore twice as likely to show low self-esteem, uh, marginal depression, um, just mental health issues as a result afterwards, even regret, they were twice as likely to feel that more than their male counterparts. So emotional stability or instability aside, rather than going off of Jeff and calling him a misogynist, why don't you go on and go to the website I just said and look up the study and look at it yourself and then compare it to the lives of all your girlfriends who are currently unhappy and single. Are they all virgins? Have they all only been with one man? And I wonder, what's the chances that their rates of being diagnosed with high rates of anxiety and depression and taking antidepressant and antipsychotics more than potentially ever before in terms of recorded history? What's I wonder if all those things are connected. So rather than me say that women who sleep around a lot are emotionally unstable, why don't you decide for yourself and look at the data? To the audience I'm talking about.
I'm gonna check it too, man. I like to do my homework too, man. Appreciate you putting that. So, from a clinical standpoint, because I've
Mhm.
been in a lot of conversations where women conflate the two. So, how often do women confuse sexual excess with relationship potential? Meaning, does sexual access
Mhm.
translate to long-term relationship marriage?
Probably rarely. I personally have not looked into the data of that specific topic as of yet, but anecdotally, it kind of makes sense that, like, your ability to pair bond may be really, really heavily impacted. The level of relational satisfaction will definitely be impacted. Your ability to continue to compare and the increased level of views of optionality, all of that's kind of built in when you keep connecting with more and more men who do leave a segment of their DNA inside of you. So yeah, I look at it through the lens of like, it makes sense to me that women don't who've been taught by feminism that sexual liberation is the ultimate way of being able to experience all the same freedoms as men have been lied to about how they're going to feel about all of those sexual exploits in comparison to us. Yes, we are biologically, physiologically different in many respects. Of all the things you want to match men's energy in, why match men's energy in this area when it leads to single mother households increasing? It leads to higher increased rates of STDs. It leads to lower self esteem, depression, anxiety. Why not match men in the area of not initiating divorces and breakups? Why not match men in the area of remaining quiet and still and before immediately emotionally vomiting over their partner just because they feel it in the moment? Why not match men in the things that are positive? Why y'all want to be on our type of time only in the negative stuff? So you can try to match men in the market of sex. First of all, as women, y'all not gonna have sex with every man. We know that. So y'all having sex with the men that are attractive enough for you to do it, which means other women also want it as well. Those men who are attractive enough to get access to all your bodies, thank you. We love it. Keep it going. We give it. Keep giving it to us. You think we're gonna say no? My suggestion is that there's very, very, very few benefits and there's a whole lot of negative consequences that comes from depersonalizing and removing the meaning and significance of sex. I know that men by nature, we are hardwired, especially our hormones and our physiological changes. Once we get post nut clarity, we don't have to talk to you ever again. We don't have to know your name. Sorry, that's the truth. For you to be like that and move like that the way a lot of men are doing now, usually there got to be some trauma involved. For us, it's just normal. So, I know that was a long, long diatribe, but that's my point.
No, man, you took care of a lot of points, man. And I would say that the thing that we have that allows us to just maneuver like that as men
Hmm.
is, we call it post nut clarity or
Yeah.
whatever. But I want to take another detour because I know you wasn't in the space when the Leanna and Travis Hunter thing went viral.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, I don't know if you noticed about this particular space. We really frown down on men who pull the trigger on moving forward with a woman who's given the signals, making it clear that maybe she's perhaps shouldn't be vetted out to be a wife.
Hmm.
But my position on it is I'm a guy that just leans on outcomes. Whatever outcome that you want to achieve, I'm here to help you get there with the shortest path of least resistance. Because in this space, you will see that people will say, no, just leave her alone. But
Hmm.
how many of us are asking, what does Travis want?
Mm.
Is this the outcome he want? What does she want? And then when we look at this type of woman, as bad as you want to paint her out to be, I'd argue that the two went on they went under the radar. They took themselves to social media. For
Hmm.
all I know, they could have went and met Ask About the podcast or Darwin
Hmm.
McPherson, stepped into his office, and
Hmm.
they said, hey, look, social media, society is trying to kill us. We want to be married. We want to move on with our lives. We can't emotionally handle all the backlash from it. What do
Hmm.
we got to do? Is there things that we should be working on? Like, is some of the things they're saying are right? And perhaps maybe you and I had a session with this couple and said, hey, if you want to be a wife, you're going to have to stop doing X, Y, and Z. And
Mm.
maybe, who knows? This woman probably went out and did that work so she can move forward. And they move
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
Why is it that the society cannot let that potentially happen without us not knowing it? Why can't we look at it that maybe they went and did the work we hounded them about, and
Hmm.
now they're married? We should be like, okay, so because a lot of times we expect to say, oh, she's for the streets, she need to go work on herself and change. But whenever they go work on themselves and change, we still don't want to look at her as somebody who can go out and be a wife after the changes. We just want her to stay in the streets, like
Hmm.
never move forward. So I'm
Yeah.
like, are we gonna step on the side of the solution after we beat these people down, or are we gonna like what are we doing?
Part of it is, I think, how he came off as such a genuinely good hearted person. I think a lot of people viewed him as like their brother. We kind of personalized it a little bit. We looked at him as like a family member, as a guy, like a friend that we would legitimately look out for. And to see a guy that was that nice to be interacting with a woman who was showing all the traits and signs of somebody that's eventually going to take advantage of him. Everybody's screaming and saying, this isn't a normal dude that understands female psychology and understands the good and bad that can come with women. This is a dude that just, he's happy to have a girlfriend. He loves her, and, she allows him to kiss him occasionally. Like, I think that we looked at him as just, it came from a place of care, and it probably came out a little ugly. But if they had came into a therapy session with me and I had observed and saw everything publicly, the first thing I actually would have did out of care for him was go over all the things that he and she believes that other people are judging him for. And I would love to see how she explains it and how he reacts and responds to her explanation. I'd be interested to know and see, is being quiet, is not raising the alarms always an act of care and love? Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. In this case, where people couldn't just call him, where people couldn't just pull up on him and say, bro, the only way that all these people who saw something that would appear to be very clear as day, their only way of getting it out to him was in the most ridiculous way possible, blowing up his social media and doing articles to make it known 90% of the country is telling you this is a bad idea. There was no other way he could learn the truth. The only other way as men we learn the truth is through trial and error experience. So if you didn't want that young guy to make this type of decision without a prenuptial agreement and other things in place. If the only way you could get him to hear how you think about it was to try to shame and bully him into not making this decision. Sometimes bullying is a good thing. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people need to tell you, yo, the shorter you with, she gonna destroy you. You may love her, you may care about her. This is her track record, and your assumption that she's gonna be different with you. You're not a regular dude. You're gonna lose millions and have to pay millions going forward, even after your career is over, if this doesn't work. He wasn't gonna hear that from me. He wasn't gonna hear that from you. But social media made sure he did. Am I saying it's the best way or is it the right way? Probably not. But there wasn't any other way from the public standpoint of what was very overt and obvious to us of how he was going to hear the message. So when he put his head in the sand and he buried his ears in, and he said, I'm still going to do this anyway, that's all it is. You got to choose it. But you can't say nobody didn't tell you. Now, if I was a therapist, I wouldn't do it in that way. But the idea I wouldn't bring attention to the problematic things that everybody else is saying, how would I be holding to my oath as a therapist? I'm gonna bring it to the forefront. So when you're sitting on this dude's lap at a party while your boyfriend is sitting in the car, how do you explain that? Is that like a normal thing? Oh, and then when you're mad at him about women running up to get his autograph or hug him after games, but you're sitting on another man's lap, you see those as two totally different things, huh? What makes them different? So when you're getting her to explain what she's doing and how she's treating him and this double standard she's having, now you're getting him to have a more objective view of stating that now this ain't social media. Now this is the therapist putting it in front of me and being like, why am I okay with that? And now you're planting the seeds for him to reevaluate, is this the best, most logical move I can make? I think a lot of that, some people can definitely say most of it came from people outright hating her. I think it was actually, especially in the Black community, it was so much about people having care and love for him. That's why they did it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not even saying it's completely justified. I'm just saying very, very few instances have I seen men and women speaking out about a young guy moving into a situation like this. I wish him the best, but all the traits and signs and behaviors and statements that was being made all said this is a bad move. And I think people just reacted to, don't do this to it. You could do this to a dude that's crazy with women and he be running through women. This dude came off and appeared to be a genuinely nice, fairly innocent dude. And I think people from the Black community, it's like watching Urkel get ran over. It's like, not Urkel. This ain't Stefan. This is Urkel. Like, don't do this to Urkel, man. Like, that's where I think a lot of people came from.
That's a good perspective, man.
Yeah.
I'm on that side with you. Mm-hmm. So let's dive into psychology.
Mm-hmm.
What's your view?
By the way, I do have about 10 more minutes. I have another
10 more minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So you got 10 more minutes. First of all, let's shout out your podcast. Your podcast is your name. Let's get everybody to follow and subscribe to Ask a Brother podcast right now. Stop what you're doing. Go ahead and type it up. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link for him so he can get get some subs over there. And y'all, because I know y'all, I'm gonna tell you right now, I ain't never had this many people in my chat, so it's all because of you, brother.
You hilarious.
I'm not gonna even try to.
I'm in the chat right now.
Almost 300 people. I mean, it's not a lot according to like a lot of people. For me, it's
more than I've ever had.
You know, I gotta. Yeah, I'm humble enough to admit that. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate the chat pulling up, the people that's pulling up. But I would be wrong if I didn't show you love, so you can get your just due, because a large amount of these people are here because of you, my brother. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the link to your channel in here so that they can reach it. And I guess you can go ahead and use this time. I guess we can just use this time to close and stuff, man. And
Mhm.
I'm glad you told me that I should just stand 10 toes down on how I deliver my message. I
Mhm.
will have to let you know I was going to do that anyways because that's
Well,
just who
stand
I
10
am.
toes down on the
But
truth.
on the truth, yeah.
Yeah, how you package it is up to you.
Okay, so yeah. And what I don't want to do is come off as I don't know, I think they call it code switching in the space or
Mm,
chameleon or something like that. I want to be able to speak specifically to the truth using the facts. I don't want to appeal to a bias or a feeling on the extreme side. I want to
mm,
because I'm a married man.
mm,
A lot of my audience don't believe in that. They don't think that you should
mm,
do it. But I do know there's a shortcut to all this madness. I do believe there's a market. I believe that you have to
mm,
be competitive if you're a man. Women, you have to optimize yourself for the man that you want to desire. There's this thing called mate desirability that a lot of
mhm,
women do not want to embrace. I
mhm,
believe in those things and I want to push those things, but I'm afraid that my content is only hitting one side when it should be hitting both sides. And I think that
mhm,
is where I'm struggling in that. There's
mhm,
not enough creators in this space. Well, there are enough creators in this space, but the creators in this space are not generous enough to say, Darwin, I see what you're trying to do.
mm,
Let me give you the pointers that you're missing because I've been in the game 10, 15, 20 years.
mhm, mhm.
Unfortunately, we don't have that. That comes with a paywall,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
maybe thousands of dollars to be able to do that.
yeah.
Nobody's going to reach out and do that.
Mhm.
So that is where
I'll
I'm
tell you
struggling.
this,
I'm going to
man.
have to get out there and do it myself.
Well, I'll tell you this less from an experienced podcaster and more from a therapist lens. A lot of times we view code switching as a form of weakness instead of a sign of emotional intelligence. And I think that if we're able to adapt to the audience in front of us while maintaining the integrity of the message and truth that we're trying to share, you're probably going to hit a whole nother segment of people that you feel can't hear you right now. It's just probably about what's the topic, who am I talking to, and how do I need to approach this. I promise you, how I talk to men and how I talk to women is just not the same. How I talk to my cousins is going to be very different than how I present myself on social media. So me saying I'm going to be the same in all these places, no, what's the same about me is what I believe, what I stand on. But there's a way and approach depending on who's in front of me of how I know they might be most likely to receive it. If the people who are most upset with you are upset with the packaging, well, over here you were packaged it this way, and over here, then what was most integral and central for them was not the message or the truth. It was the thing that they complained about with Kevin Samuels. It was how you said the truth. The people who are interested in the truth, if you package it in a way where the target audience of said group is much more likely to receive it, you're going to capture the people that's most interested in the truth and the people who need the packaging before they can accept the truth. Now you're getting both groups. So for me, everything I'm saying, you've said in the past. You said the same stuff. And there's a segment, you got a big audience. There's a segment of the audience, they already rocking with you. And if you've been doing this for 1, 2, 3 years, I don't think those that respect you for you being honest are going to be nearly as turned off to you switching up on occasion how you want to present it. I know sometimes we don't give our audience or people that are supporters the benefit of the doubt because people can be fickle. Just try it. Just try it. Like do a panel discussion with women. Do a panel discussion with guys. Do a panel discussion with male feminists and see how you go. I promise you, you cannot talk to a male feminist the way you would talk to a man who doesn't consider himself a feminist or conservative.
Yeah.
They both men. Two totally different. They're two totally different messages that has to be tried to be not messages, but the way in which that message has to be communicated. It's two totally different groups. They don't think the way. They don't vote the same way. So how do I connect with the liberal guy versus the conservative guy? And if we look at it through that lens, then in my mind, I think that more often than not, we're gonna sow more seeds of truth in further places than we thought we could imagine. I promise you, there's definitely people who will not like me because I talk too low, because I'm wearing a suit or suit jacket. That's why I felt like the largest pool of people that may take me more seriously is if I do this. And funny enough, this is just how I dress every day for work. This is actually me. This is actually how I talk at home. So I'm not putting on an act. Um, but my perspective was is like if I can keep the emotions in check and I can just focus and stay on task of what it is I'm supposed to say, and I'm clear about it and I give examples and I back it up with some data, the people who value those things, it'll find them. And that's it. And to me, bro, you're way ahead of where I'm at, and you're already been doing that. Now you're at that next stage of, I'm sure how you're podcasting now is not how you was doing 2 years ago,
Oh no, man.
right? So you're constantly evolving. You're constantly evolving, and I'm assuming your subscriber count is bigger now than it was 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, it was 0 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
right. So why wouldn't between now and 2 years from now, this be another lane, another tool in your toolkit? So that when you're interacting with these women or men on these platforms, there's a different tonality of how you both are seeing each other and how you're responding now. My goal, I told you, my goal isn't always talking to you or the person that's I'm seeing across the screen. Most of what I'm saying is to the people who's going to watch this now and later on. So you cannot receive it. You could be pissed off at me. What about the 5,000 other people that's going to watch this by the end of this week? You know what I'm saying? So, I appreciate you allowing me in your space, man. You didn't have to do this. It's an honor. I've watched you on different platforms. I've watched you on the piece. I've seen you hold your own in major debates and everything. You may not be. I think sometimes because we don't see ourselves in the brackets of the Jordan Petersons and the Pearls of the world. A lot of times I think a lot of y'all who have been doing this for a little bit longer than the rest of us, sometimes I don't think that y'all realize how big of an impact. You're a part of the reason why I'm doing this. As is Lapeef, as is Anton, as is Pearl, as is Jordan Peterson. These are people who got tired of just watching what everybody else is doing and said, I think I have value to present to the world, and I'm willing to publicly share my thoughts and be judged for it, good and bad. If y'all wasn't doing this, I promise you I wouldn't have done this. If I didn't see people that look like me, was a little bit older than me doing this, I wouldn't have done it. So genuinely, and I'm not sucking up to you, I genuinely appreciate you for what you're doing. And best believe, man, your growth process is inspiring to a lot of people, whether you realize it or not.
Man, I appreciate it, man. That gives me so much motivation to continue to do what I do. And I'm gonna challenge myself to bring that what we just spoke about into my toolkit to see what
Hmm.
happens. I'm actually gonna try to test that out in my next piece of content.
Nice.
But I ain't gonna hold you up. I appreciate the praise, and I had to have you on. I
Hmm.
sorry for taking your time, but I had to have you here, man. And you always welcome back here anytime you want to have a conversation.
Oh man, we're
There's
gonna have
so many things going on in society. We got an endless thing to talk about, but I ain't gonna hold you up, man. Just I guess give your last piece, and we'll see you on the next one.
Listen, y'all, thank y'all for coming. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hoping for have some really dope stuff pretty soon this week coming out from our first episodes. And I want to do more collabs because my channel is called Ask a Brother, because I want us to finally ask questions that we maybe felt we couldn't ask or say out loud. I basically want to free our minds and our voices to be able to speak and think again. And just be a conduit of us being able to do this with each other and providing a safe space for us to do it. So I'll take the hits that come with it, but if we're better as a consequence of it, as thinkers, as beers, as community members, in terms of the Black community, if we're better and smarter than we were after watching anything I'm on, I did my job.
All right, that's Ask a Brother podcast. Y'all know where to find them, man. Salute to you, brother. Follow him on Instagram too.
All right, y'all.
All right. All right, man. Sorry about the last quarter of the live stream. That was a struggle with the connection. I want to go through the super chats real quick. Shout out to my man Marcus. Appreciate you, my brother. Marcus Evans, $10. Shout out to Darwin and Brother Podcast for the classic interview conversation. Keep doing the Most High's work, Brother Podcast. You're needed in this space. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. The man be cooking. He's been cooking. He's viral. He's a married man. He's everything you wanted. The spokesperson for our particular community, the space, the issues, everything you wanted the man to be. It's him, and we have him now. So what are we going to do as a people? What are we going to do as a community? What are we going to do as a content creation space? Are we going to embrace him and thrust him forward so he can accomplish the things he wants to? Or are we going to tear him down? I'm going to be here to support this man. I'm going to be on the side of support. I don't know what side you're going to be on, but I'm going to see it through. Appreciate you, Marcus Evans. Julian Blackwood, $20. You're for getting the biggest push that corporations want us to separate for control. Nike had a commercial, anything you can do, I can do better. Movies, shows, TVs, radios. Shout out to Julian Blackwood for the $20. Appreciate you, my brother. Yeah. MX Infinity, $20. I would suggest if you're trying to communicate with the female audience, be direct and identify how their method of operation logic leads to cognitive dissonance with regards to the family relationship goals with men. Most definitely. I will keep that in my mind. Appreciate the $20. Let's go to Julian Blackwood, $10 again. Don't forget about what you said earlier about how we are raised that women can hit man. Oh, yeah. That is tough. He touched on that. I recommend if y'all didn't see that part of it, make sure y'all rewind back. MX Infinity, $5. He just identified a cognitive dissonance perfectly. Females say she doesn't need a man but expects the man's resources, which doesn't make sense. Absolutely. Again, for $5. The study makes sense, but females apparently don't orgasm every time they have smash, so they chase that high because they haven't met me. Oh, just kidding. Over there beating your chest. I hear you, dog. Birdman, $10. Sending love to SBC Nation. Shout out to you, my brother. Can you discuss Hugh Slut? I don't know how to pronounce Salam. Can you discuss the vulnerable narcissist and how it ties into everything from cancel culture and false allegations? I'm going to write that down. I'm going to stamp that. And the next time Brother Podcast get up here, we will talk about that. Again, Infinity. The collab we knew we needed, most definitely. Shout out to us for bringing this wonderful content to the space. KMS. Everybody claim wolf until the wolf show up. Well, the wolf is here. There you go. Infinity again, thank you for your generosity. Men like the lecturing dunks on women. Women want to feel, know that they are still redeemable. Help them see and remove their cognitive dissonance. And that looks like it. Is that it? I thought I had Sophisticated Jerk on here. Oh, Sophisticated Jerk ain't hit me up today, even though that's my guy. I appreciate everybody pulling up. I ain't going to hold y'all long. But I think I had a lot more questions. Brother had to peel off. But for the most part, I think we got to the nucleus of the issues or the goal I wanted to reach on this particular show. We set a record for active or concurrent viewers with this live stream. So shout out, this is happy birthday to the live stream, whatever you want to call it. Make sure y'all subscribe if y'all haven't subscribed. It's funny that 80% of the people who watch my content have not subscribed. And I pinned a gift to y'all in the chat. It's an ebook that I just dropped. I got a couple of more coming, but I wanted to give y'all some content that y'all can hold and own and be able to go to whenever you want to and not have to rely on my videos. So there's that. But appreciate everybody pulling up. Appreciate y'all sticking with me through the struggle streaming. And shout out to Ask the Podcast. I'm confident that he will make a comeback to this channel to have another future conversations. Love y'all. God bless. And y'all be easy.